Hi, I'm Ellie.
I'm Allie,
I'm Elisheva.
My name is Esther.
and we are the YULA Girls High School Baked In. After careful analysis of the sources that we will present, we have concluded that Mr. Shalom, CEO of Oliva Industries, is not liable for the accident caused to Shimon Shalom. Ms. Rubenstein, the owner of the self-driving car that collided into Mr. Shalom's, is the one who is in fact liable for the damages caused.
First, we must categorize the car as one of the four categories of damages listed in Bava Kama, Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. There's the shor, ox, the bor, pit, mava, which has a disputed definition, and hever, fire. Typically, an item that causes damage is placed in only one of these categories. However, as a self-driving car in our case is very unique, we've decided to categorize the car as both the ox and the fire.
The car is like an ox because it is a mode of transportation and has a mind separate from the mind of its owner. It is not fully like an ox, though, because it is not alive and cannot be meaningfully controlled by its owner. This leads us to categorize the car as fire as well, as fire is not living and cannot be controlled by the one who starts it after it is set. One of the categories that we have placed the car in is the hever, so the laws of damage caused by fire apply in our case. Shemot Perek Chaf Bet Pasuk Hey notes that Habe'era et hamavir yishalem shalem. One who starts a fire must make restitution. In our case, Ms. Rubenstein started the fire by turning on the car simply. She knew fully well that she would not have meaningful control of the car once it was started. However, she chose to do so anyway. Therefore, it is her responsibility to make restitution to Mr. Shalom.
Mr. Levine is recognizably not liable for the damages faced by Mr. Shalom. In Shema Perek Chaf Aleph, Pasukim Lamed He and Lamed Bav, the pasuk states that if an ox has a habit of goring and its owner has failed to guard it, he must restore ox for ox. In our case, though, the ox in question does not have a habit of goring, as there have not been similar incidents. Also, based off of this source is a concept that the car did not even gore. The car saved a life, the complete opposite of goring. This shows that Mr. Levine did not make a mistake in the program of his car. The car acted in the right.
The car company programmed the car to achieve the safest possible instructions. Ketuvot 19a teaches that there is nothing that stands in the way of saving a life except for idolatry, sexual immorality, and murder. Mr. Levine fully followed this concept, putting in all he could to program the car to increase the chances of saving a life. The pedestrian could have easily been killed had not Mr. Levine programmed his car so carefully. The car is programmed a specific way so that no one should be killed. Bava Kama Perek Gimel Mishnah Yud Aleph states that a stadium ox trained to kill is not liable to be executed, since the Torah states that an ox gores and not that it was caused to gore by others. This source explains that the ox is not liable, just like the car is not. The car is the product of Mr. Levine, who thus is exempt from paying the damages. Therefore, the case must be further explored in order to prove the liability of the guilty party. Bava Kama Perek Gimel Mishnah Yud Aleph brings up the concept of hamotze mechavero ala haraya. One who wishes to extract payment from his friend must provide proof. In our case, Mr. Shalom is the one who wishes to extract the payment. However, he does not need to bring direct proof himself, since no one, including Ms. Rubenstein and Mr. Levine, denies that the car crash happened to begin with. We have oral confirmation from Ms. Rubenstein herself, as she admitted that it was her car that collided with Mr. Shalom's and only refused to pay after she heard the price that he demanded.
The word responsibility contains within it the notions of ability. Miss Rubenstein, the owner of the self-driving car, had the ability to change the circumstances around her. Her ability to avoid the collision with Mr. Shalom, in addition to swerving away from the pedestrian, is solely in the capability of a human being and not in the programming of a self-driving car. It was her choice to buy this car and her choice to start it the day of the accident.
Firstly, the car was solely Rachel's property. According to Bava Kama Bet Vav, a person who is considered warned is liable. One may argue that she was asleep because she could not make any difference, yet even someone asleep is considered warned. Furthermore, Rachel was driving in a public domain. Her negligence mirrors the source in the response of Rabbeinu Asher, which states that unless a person is going at a slow pace in a public domain, that person is fully responsible for any public damages caused. Miss Rubenstein was driving in a public domain, thus making her obligated to be able to stop at will.
In addition to driving too quickly, one who causes a fire is responsible in making restitution for anything that is destroyed. Extrapolating on Pasuk Chaf Bet, Ms. Rubenstein's car is considered a fire. Ms. Rubenstein started the car, igniting the fire, and is therefore fully responsible for the burning it caused, namely the injuries faced by Mr. Shalom. Baba Kama Perek Gimel Mishnah Yud serves as one last source in proving Rachel Rubenstein's liability. This source states that the owner of an ox is liable to pay for his ox's actions. Rachel's car is classified as a modern-day ox, which was historically a means of transportation. These sources have built a multifaceted argument which affirms Ms. Rubenstein's liability.
Even though Ms. Rubenstein is liable, if she has insurance, she can use it to reimburse Mr. Shalom. According to Tshuvot Ve'Hanhagot of Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, what the damaged party receives from the insurance company is in exchange for his own private money that he deposited over time. However, if the insurance does not cover the entirety of damages, Ms. Rubenstein must pay for the rest. After determining that Ms. Rubenstein is liable in our case, we will address whether Mr. Levine should change the programming of Aliva cars for the future. We do not require that he change anything, although we suggest that he add a manual override option, Lifnei Misharat Hadin. Technically, he is not doing anything wrong by selling his car, as it has to have passed federal regulations in order to be in the market in the first place. It is similar to the case of a Jew selling pork in a public marketplace. Technically, he or she is allowed to, even if it is not ideal. Therefore, we do not require him to change the programming of his car.
Now that we have determined that Miss Rubenstein is liable and can use insurance to pay Mr. Shalom, what is it that she has to pay? One whose ox causes damages only has to pay for damages, one of the 5 categories of payments that one who causes harm has to pay for, according to Bava Kama, Perek Chaf, Mishnah Aleph. One might think that since we have categorized the car as a shore, Miss Rubenstein only has to pay for damages and not the 4 other categories as necessary with the ox. However, as we have also categorized the car as hever, the liable party must pay for more than that. One who causes damage by fire has to pay for all the categories of payments listed because of Bava Kama 22ab, which states that fire and arrows are comparable, and arrows are considered an extension of oneself. Therefore, a fire is considered an extension of oneself as well. Because the car is compared to fire, the same categories apply.
This source states that arrows are to people as fire is to arrows, so therefore fire is to people. People are liable for all categories of payment when they cause harm. So this makes one who starts a fire responsible for all 5 types of payment listed in Bava Kama Perek Chaf, Mishnah Aleph: damages, suffering, medical expenses, time off from work, and embarrassment.
Thank you.
Perfect time.
Judges, you have 8 minutes for questions.
I am troubled by the fact that you ignore Tosafot, Baba Kama 27b, and especially in 2, 4, 6 lines down, where Talmud Yerushalmi exempts someone who goes to sleep first if a second person came to sleep next to him and was damaged. It just seems to me that Rachel was sleeping because she was paying attention to her music or whatever was on the podcast. And the Talmud seems to say that she is not liable, notwithstanding the ordinary case. One who starts a fire is liable. There seems to be an exception to that. Would you explain
Yeah.
your position?
Okay, so the way we address that source from the Talmud is that we said that she is analogous to this situation, however, not exact. The person who falls asleep in this public domain in the source is just falling asleep. He doesn't have something dangerous in his hands or in his vicinity that he falls asleep knowing that that can be harmful to another. Like, for example, if he fell asleep holding some sort of something sharp in his hands, he would be held accountable if during his sleep he caused harm to the person next to him. So when she fell asleep, she actually had in her hands a very powerful and destructive vehicle. And considering that she didn't take that into account, we thus prove her liability.
And in addition to what Ellie said, in Bava Kama 2.6 it states that a person is always considered warned, whether asleep or whether accidental or intentional, awake or asleep. So we can then conclude that Miss Rubenstein was considered warned because she did not have full control.
It's understandable how you've made this distinction, but I'm wondering whether your distinction really has merit in that there would be nothing she could have done if she were awake, because the car was controlling everything. So wasn't all of this out of her control?
Because she went to sleep knowing that she had something that could cause damage, even if, let's say, she couldn't control it. Because she already knew, she was considered warned.
The fact that she just turned on the car, and which was the ignition of the fire, was when her choices started. Everything after that was built on that first choice. So therefore, she was actually, even though at that moment there was no manual override, which we do suggest there should be added, just according to halacha, because she started the fire, she's like held accountable for the damages of fire.
Could you go back one slide?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what it appears like. It appears here. So I take issue with categorizing the car as two things at the same time. There doesn't appear to be any precedent in our source book of this taking place. Contrary, it actually states that they're unlike each other in every circumstance. So I really would like you to address that, the issue of giving a dual classification. And then additionally, it appears like from your own evidence that the only reason to classify the car as fire is to just cover all the other damages that would not have been, that would not be liable if the car is just an ox.
Well, I would like to begin with saying that I believe that in Judaism and in the debates that we are taking place in, I think that it is very hard to come to one distinct answer. Nothing is concrete, and I think that you have to put in account the different sources of the different possibilities and then derive from that the verdict. But I think that the reason that we could not just classify the car as the fire is because as the ox, as one or the other. The reason we have to classify them as both is because the ox is the basic means of transportation, and because we do not normally use oxes nowadays, we had to apply it to a modern-day vehicle such as a car. And the fire, once you, similarly to the car, the smart car, once you set it, you have no control over it because there was no manual override, similarly to a fire, when once you light it, you have no control over what happens next. So I think that we have to take both of these categories into consideration because they both apply.
We wanted to demonstrate how evolutionary halacha is, as at the times that this was being written, there was no such thing as a self-driving car or even a car itself. So as all the categories seemed very concrete, we actually wanted to intertwine them to show that things that seem modern that shouldn't apply to any of the four cases actually apply to multiple aspects of them.
I just have one other question. I found your written paper very interesting in that you suggest that Aliva and Mr. Shalom have not been sued. Is that your position?
I mean, because let's say there's a matchbox company and someone decides to buy from that company and they strike the fire and make a fire from these matches, the person who makes the company is not responsible for the damages that could be caused by the fires from the match because they just make the matches. So it's not like they ignited the fire or have done anything.
And also in this case that we've been given, they did not sue Mr. Shalom or Aliva. Mr. Levine specifically sued Rachel.
So I guess I have a concern with your recommendation for the car company, as they've been forewarned, that they should put an override into the programming. However, if they put an override, does that necessarily mean that the individual who does not take advantage of the override is therefore always held responsible? And does that argue that the company then is legally shifting all liability to whoever purchases the car?
So the way we addressed that was that even if we added the manual override, with or without it, we concluded that the person in the car would be liable because they started the fire. So therefore, a manual override it wouldn't change halachically the liability. It would only make the situation, it would probably just make it a better possible situation for those around the driver.
So a follow-up question then is that once the decision has been made and the car company knows that there is a potential problem, doesn't that shift responsibility onto the dean if another accident were to occur before that decision is enacted?
I think that it would. If in that case, then we would have to take in many other considerations. But like Ellie said, it's lifnei mishurat hadin. Because they passed the federal regulations, they are technically able to have the car without any problems. And if that was the case, if they added a manual override, we would have to then look at other sources and take in some other considerations.
Could you get around that by issuing a stronger injunction?
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.